Hi everyone, it's the Sunday of the Season 27 launch weekend, and I want to talk about our GR150 clear that we have done. So this was sometime during Saturday afternoon, so it was like, I think 23 hours into the season or so, and this was with like 5-6 hours of sleep for at least my team. I stayed up the entire night and just blasted T16. I didn't really get anything out of it, so that was kind of like unnecessary. And our total playtime at this point was like, I think 15-16 hours as a team. So this was kind of like a really fast GR150 clear. Interesting part is we actually did it in a single key. So we cleared this 149 and then we went into the next run and it was this Festering Woods here. It wasn't even the craziest one with the snakes. It's not exactly like a good monster type, but with the power of the HotA Barbarian, we were able to just slowly progress through this rift until we eventually find a conduit. And this is exactly what happened. So we were just making these pulls here, slowly adding more and more monsters to it. And Rob with the HotA Barbarian was just like hammering away, proccing those shockwaves that would just decimate everything. My role here is the Impale Rift Guardian Killer, so I'm not really useful in the Rift at all. And then we have the CDH and the Z Barb, obviously, so they are supporting, buffing, and debuffing. And since they mostly stay with the Barbarian to try to clean up the trash as much as possible while damaging the elites a little bit, I was mostly just running around and trying to find out where we would go and pulling enemies. So you see me here always like circling around the pool, sometimes going away a little bit, and then coming back to bring more monsters and just like refresh the pool constantly with more monsters. The thing is that this meta is like slightly laggy, I guess, so we did have some issues with that, especially during the first days of the season. There are obviously a lot of people on the servers putting a way higher server load than usual, and this is noticeable when you do these high GR runs. So especially when you play any kind of metas that are more prone to lagging, then this can happen. And we had some trouble in like the tiers 145 to 148 or so, but we did some adjustments to our playstyle and it worked much better afterwards. So essentially we're always trying to have like some kind of medium-sized pool of like 30, 40 monsters and not really more. And then you would just kind of like slowly refill with more and more monsters as they died, so that we don't have this massive pool and start lagging out. That's unfortunate, but it doesn't really hurt it all that much, because if you do this well, then you can constantly keep up the Echoing Fury buff on the Rahuda, you can keep up the Rampage, and you can just keep hammering away while damaging the elites. I believe that by now there are already a few other 150 clears, so we were the first ones, at least on softcore, that did it, and we were ahead by quite a margin. And there was actually a hardcore team with double Necro, so Rafma plus the Nova, and they were actually the first on the European servers, at least, to do it. So that's kind of curious to see. It turns out that both the Necro meta and the Barbarian meta are actually a bit more powerful than I had anticipated, and those 150s just went down like way easier than I thought. So when we played out on the PTR, I figured it was pretty good, but not really like so easy mode, basically. And if you would have really wanted, I think you could have even done this in potentially even the first like 12 or 13 hours or so, without going to sleep first and all that stuff. Just like straight up, gear up, do some speedruns for like a few hours, and then push all the way. I also gotta say that I really like this Strafe Impale DH, so this has been a really fun XP farming meta so far, and it also has worked out great in pushing. The Impale Demon Hunter is actually back as a Rift Guardian killer this season, along with the Rafma Necro, which is, I believe, a bit more powerful, but it's not like a huge margin. And you have the added advantage here as the Impale Demon Hunter that you are mobile and that you can pull enemies. So this is really what you have to capitalize on to make this Impale Demon Hunter really worth it in a party. And then when the boss spawns, the idea is that you try to keep up the skirts 100% if you can. So this is usually not too hard when you do the smoke screen spam, or like just try to time it with the boss abilities, and depends a bit on like which boss you're actually fighting. And then you obviously want to try to stay at a range where you can hit with all 3 knives. It's also kind of funny how we ended up with such a good clear on our first key on GR150 after we had actually been struggling a little bit towards the higher end So when you're doing the 148, 149, especially once we had a bit of issues with lags that we had to figure out, it was kind of demotivating because we were opening some good maps and we couldn't play them and stuff like that. And we had to do several attempts until it finally worked. And then we just walked in here and we obliterated the rift. So that was pretty hilarious with the like almost 10 minutes clear or something like that. In case you're curious, you can see Rob's gear here. So I just like went through the leaderboard snapshot real quick. You can pause the video if you want to see the items. My gear was also okay. It was probably a bit worse, but as a Rift Guardian killer, that usually also doesn't really matter that much because of Bane Stricken giving you a fast boss kill by default effectively, as long as you have like a proper Rift Guardian killer setup. A lot of people also ask me which meta is actually better, the HotA or the Nova, or even the Tarasha Meteor or the Bazooka. So I did talk about this already ahead of the season start, but I gotta say it's kind of hard to pinpoint it exactly. I do believe that the Nova for 4-man is probably not on the same level as the HotA and the Nova, but between the other two it seems fairly equal, but it obviously depends. You know, we don't have a lot of data right now, we don't have a lot of people actually going to this level, and we also had limited testing on the PTR, and with some post-PTR changes on top of it. So we have to wait and see it until like a clearer picture develops, because we have just like these few data points. For example, in our case, we had a pretty solid run, but it could have also been way better. This could have been a 9-minute run, for example, or even better. So even this early in the season, you can really obliterate those 150s without like any paragons, as long as you have a bit of gear and you have a good map and everything works fine. Yeah, this is just how it is. And the same with the Nova. So there were some clears like a really low paragon already. And yeah, it really comes down to just waiting it out and seeing where the trend goes. But it seems they are at least very competitive and pretty close enough, I'd say. So you can play either of those two metas. And I guess also the same for the Rift Guardian killers. You might see either the Demon Hunter or the Necromancer be used a bit more, depending on the meta and how people are actually like farming and then going towards the 150 later on. But again, both of them are competitive. For the Meteor Wizards, I would say they are definitely a bit behind, but certainly capable of carrying a GR150 clear as well. And I also talked about this. I think there's a really important niche for Meteor Wizards, in particular in 2 and 3-man, where you can play as the only DPS and have good AoE and decent single target damage, which is something that none of the other trash killers can actually bring. So this is a huge advantage, so you don't actually need to have a Rift Guardian killer. In any case, hope you enjoyed this little video and my explanation about our setup and how we did it. I wish you guys good luck in Season 27, and see you guys next time.